Right, this is going to be the second episode of... Is it the best or is it best damn? I think you just say best damn, right? You drop the usually, I think. So it's best damn league podcast, period. And by the way, the period part, that's the one part that even though it was in the name, we should probably remove that because that is American. Like we don't call them periods. We actually call it full stop in English, but...
No, we're keeping the period. We're keeping the period. It needs the finality at it. You know, like there's no question it is the best damn league show.
Okay. It is. Look, even the numbers bear that out, mate. It's episode 1, we're already killing it. Look at what do you want? And also, I noticed we actually did nail it. Believe it or not, bearing in mind, as I alluded to before, technically, all our fans should hate this show because it's only me interrupting you speaking, which, as far as I can tell, they claim was the least enjoyable part of the show. But what do you know? Killing it anyway without some player just going... I mean, he's really griefing it in scrims. Like, apparently some guy just saying that and going, we're doing well in scrims. Apparently just vague things about scrims actually aren't as hot topic as people thought. Some people want insight, you know, they want the horizons of the mind to be expanded. Maybe a little bit. I might have got a little bit too self-indulgent on what this show is going to do with the last part. Maybe League of Legends and LEC-related shit and... you know, banter, I imagine. So anyway, here's the thing, Dom. One of the things that this show will be unique for is we're just going to cut all the guff. So we're going to dive every time, I think, every single time, the first thing we do, unless there's some funny side thing, just dive straight into the biggest topic. So just like last time, we didn't waste any time building up the... We just dived into, like, everyone says vitality shit, the 0 and 3. Let's get into that topic. So the same one right now, it's an obvious one, is Carlos got to today do his tweet where he said all of the players from last year finally have a home because Mikyx, it's announced, has joined XL, replacing Advien, who obviously had only played since last split as the support player. People might remember they have a Dutch support and jungle duo with Marcoon and Advien. Now, obviously, XL have again started, they're up and down, they look good at sometimes, they look kind of shit sometimes, they lose games they should win, but then they win games they should lose. Like, they're still the same team to some degree. They've signed Mikyx, who obviously everyone knows, if you go back even just over a year, people would be saying he's like contender for greatest support ever, blah, 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 in Europe, all the rest of it. Right, this news, on the surface, right, Dom, I haven't talked about this, I wonder, are you viewing this as an upgrade? Is this a good move in your book?
I mean, I think it's an upgrade, but I think it's a weird move, and especially the way that they preface it, I really didn't like. I just saw that some of the comments were super weird, specifically the one about him being a winner, like a winning mentality. He's going to instill that on the team. Like when I look at the old G2 team, yeah, yes, by definition, they're all winners. They all won.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that every single player has that winning mentality. And if I wanted a player that was going to like instill a mentality into the team, I feel like Mikyx would be one of the last players that I'd want. I feel like Mikyx is super proficient, super talented, and really skilled, but I don't feel like he's going to be the guy that's going to be stepping on people's toes and be like, all right, guys, I'm here now. Put down the big dick. Like, we are now a winning team. Everything runs through me. If he doesn't like something, he's going to speak up, all that stuff. I feel like he's just going to go, like, play support. He's going to play it well. He's going to do the right things at the right time. And I think he is, like, technically an upgrade to Advien, but I don't necessarily think this move needed to be done. And I think the thing that was the weirdest for me is I feel like it's like a mismatch. Like if I was going to pick a team where I wanted Mikyx to replace someone, I would think that the team would be Misfits. I feel like Misfits would be the perfect team for that.
Yes.
That could like actually elevate their standing from being a 6th place team to maybe a top 5 team. Like maybe that's the piece that they need to actually propel that team to the next level. I don't feel like that's the move for XL. I don't think that they're going to be dramatically better. I think that he's technically an upgrade, but all the messaging around the whole season is now extremely confusing, given the fact that the first thing they said was that they wanted to have this support and this jungle and build around them for the entire year. It's like, well, I mean, what, you wanted to build around them for 2 weeks? Also, I mean, just the way it comes off is like, why did this happen 2 weeks into the season when Advien's actually been playing pretty well? I mean, he's been roaming, getting a lot of early leads. He has like pretty good stats, high kill participation for first blood. Like he's doing what you'd want out of a support. I don't feel like he's the reason they're losing. And I don't know if a support position upgrade is really going to be that different in what comes of like the results of the team. So I don't know how to really feel about it. I mean, I guess it's technically an upgraded, but I don't particularly like the move. What do you think?
Yeah, similar in that, look, if we're just going like, I call it like football manager mode, because I don't think you have an equivalent in America, unfortunately. Basically, there's a game famously, it's been like 20 years out, and you're just the manager of a football team, and, you know, it's a bunch of names on paper. In the modern day, it plays a simulation version of the game after, you know, essentially all you do is you're the GM of a team. There you go, that's the American sports equivalent, right? And you just put together your team, and you sign up. Basically, if you're doing that, yes, on paper, the stats for Mikyx would be slightly higher, maybe, the different qualities. Obviously, has experience. I think you could even do some good stuff in this bot lane with and Patrick. The problem I have is it's what you're saying is I'm also remembering the reasons I've been told by Excel the current team exists, and they were one of those teams that loved to go with that angle of like we're going to like develop the talent and how it's important, you know, to bring people. Like I'm sure the whole pitch this year was like, you know, don't judge us just by the results of last split. Look at the positives, and we're going to like build on that. It's like, well, you're not, because the second you got a chance to do your upgrade, you just immediately chopped and changed that guy's out of here. Like if he's being developed, he's been developed on another team now, mate, or he's just sat on your bench. By the way, that's the opposite of developing. You just play the games, you never get any actual test, you never get to show that you're good. So I'm a little bit concerned by this, because unfortunately, when I look at the Finn move to top lane, I look at Nuke coming back to mid lane, now I look at Mikyx, this doesn't look like a development project at all. Look, I would make this team in Football Manager because I'm a person who thinks that rookies are overrated. But if your whole thing is we're a development team, that's not what I'm hearing goes like this. We're a development team right up until anyone who's vaguely good's available, and then we're not a development team. Like that's nonsense, isn't it? That's just saying I'm too broke right now to get all the players I want. So you know what? Con this kid who couldn't join some other team. Yeah, come on, I'll develop you, mate. What's that? Fucking Mikyx is available. Get the fuck out of here. What are you doing here? You haven't even got good in 2 games. Bring in Mikyx. Like, what's that? Like, because my problem is this. It's a point actually that someone made years ago about the LEC when these teams like Mad Lions and Rogue start to succeed. They said the key thing is this. If those teams continue on this track record that they will bring people from academy or bring people from the bench, and they really will try and work you in the lineup, that will actually make you a more interesting destination for players. They might join your team now going like, if I'm actually good, I might get in these scrims. I might get in the game. I might even get like a promotion from the ERL, for example. Though that's a really valuable way for me, in my opinion, a team like XL could build themselves. But instead, as far as I can tell now, they're just a budget team trying to get the best players and win. So what's the identity of the team now? You know what I mean? Like for me, the identity of the team doesn't exist. It's just a middle of the table team with not much money, as far as I can tell.
My question would be this. All right, let's say we played a little game and tomorrow Jankos is cut from G2. He's cut from G2. He has a personal disagreement, and it's not because of skill or anything. He still looks just as good as he looks now, but for some reason he's cut from G2. Would XL then just, like, let's say he's cut, actually no buyout. Is XL just going to pick him up and be like, yeah, actually, fuck Marcoon and Enviad? Like, both
feels like it, right?
And Jankos would be better.
Yes.
Like, okay, are they just going to put those two in the game? I mean, I'm not saying I hate the move, but like, especially with the messaging, I think it's super weird. And then, yeah, I mean, back to the point. I mean, what do you think about the winner's mentality?
I don't buy that at all, mate. Again, as you're saying,
zero.
Right, first of all, I hope everyone in G2 learned this last year. I already think that like teams tend to like adapt to the vibe of the star player as it is. Think about Uzi I teams, Doinby teams, Faker teams. I already think people sort of culturally go towards the star anyway. So for my money, I mean, you saw it. The only player you changed was bloody Perks, arguably for an upgrade individually, and the team just collapsed completely. It had no identity. Every single thing you thought you knew about them, oh, they're like the geniuses in the mid game and the way they make that, no, that was there. Then you got all the thing, oh, they never give up though. They can always, that was just gone. Oh, they always believe like it's possible to like defeat the Asian, that wasn't even existing. Like every intangible we built up, the joke was they weren't only from Perks, but without Perks there, like some sort of Magic the Gathering character with an aura effect. Without him there, it doesn't activate in the other players. Dude, even Caps is different when fucking Perks isn't there for some mad reason. In fact, at this point in his career, I certainly wonder if it, like, what, at this point in time, my question is, was Caps just some sort of byproduct of playing with Hylissang or Perks? Like, when I see him without those players, he's a very different player than the one that I'm used to seeing tear the game up. So the problem I have is if I'm picking players within G2, like you're saying, like, who brings the winner mind? Who brings like the Tom Brady mindset where it's like a killer instinct? It ain't fucking Mikyx. He seems like the quietest member of the team, the most unassuming. By the way, as far as I can tell, his problem with Reckless is they had huge problems and didn't talk. They just sat there like, well, I can't get through this guy. But this guy's not even trying to talk to me. Shit. Like it's not like they were having arguments all the time. And no, the far I can tell they never connected. So to me, yeah, I don't get it, mate. Like I'm not hating on him because he is a champion, like you say, and he obviously is exceptionally good mechanically at the game when he's in his prime. Really, but the problem is, of all the players in G2, I'm sorry, I feel like he brings the least intangibles, you know? I even think for supports, by the way, dude, sometimes I've always had the vibe. Here's the difference for me between Mikyx and Hylissang. Because in their primes, they were 1A, 1B, and they even a very similar style of player on the screen. The difference is this. Hylissang, as far as I can tell, comes up with all the initiative for those players. I get the vibe Mikyx follows up on players. Do you get the difference? There's a distinction to me. So I don't even feel like this adds like an extra, you know, like voice to the... I don't think it does. I think if anything, it might even have removed the voice. I'm not sure how much Advian talked, you know.
Yeah, I'm not really sure about the in the game stuff. I mean, for me, I don't think that the winner's mentality is something that many players have. Like, I don't know if I played with anyone during my career that had the winner's mentality. I think that it's a very specific thing, and there's only like a handful of players that I would feel like you can really see has those mentalities. I actually feel like Kaiser might have a little bit of that. Like when you see the way he plays, it seems like he is the progressive one that's like, no, we're gonna like find a way to win this. This is like what I want to do. Like let's fucking get it done. I feel like Hillsong has a little bit of it. Perks has a little bit of it. I think at times in NA and like season 5, season 6, I remember Bjergsen was the main driving force behind those championships. I mean, we've seen it with Doinby, we've seen it with Faker. There's people that have it, but I don't think that everyone has it, or necessarily every team that gets put together has to have somebody that has that mentality in order to succeed. So to me, I think that that's just like, it's just like, yeah, he has the experience of winning. He knows what winning feels like. And like, he could probably tell you like, oh, when I'm in a team, is this team going to succeed or is this team going to collapse and fail? Like he probably has that like intuition within him as to like what the environment of success looks like. But that to me doesn't necessarily mean that he is going to actually push them towards that. So maybe I'm reading too much into that little comment, but I think that was something that really struck me as like, do you know who you're getting? Like, Mikyx is the person, like what you should be saying is, we have Patrick. Everyone says Patrick is a fucking superstar. I mean, we talked to so many players on the Crackdown. He was always a player that I feel like from outside of teams and outside of the LEC, you're just like, oh, he's pretty good. Nothing special. But people always make a point of saying, no, that guy is actually insane. Like that
he's
guy
like the
is a real
player if people get it. Yeah, they always rate him highly among the pro group, right?
Yeah, he's definitely the player's player. So like the messaging I would use is like, yeah, this is going to unlock Patrick to really be like the superstar of this team. Like this is what he needs. Like Patrick has never had a top tier support. If you think about like the people that he's gone through playing, like there hasn't been one of those really like highly coveted supports that he's played with, at least at this point in his career, where he's really developed into a player. So I think that would be the advantage. Like, are you just going to be smashing people bot lane now? Where before it was more about Vetheo and roaming and like unlocking him on the map and him and Marcoon actually figuring out what to do to get the team ahead. And then obviously the team would inevitably throw. Now the question is, can you play more through Patrick? Can you actually dominate some of these lanes and get ahead through bot? So I think that would be the biggest issue. But for me, when I just hear the way that it's messaged, I'm like, are you guys just bullshitting us just to say things that you hope fans want to hear? Because it's like, oh shit, winner's mentality. I like winning. I'm an XL fan. Like, what the fuck are you trying to like actually get out of people? Or do you just really not know who you have? Like, do you not know what Mikyx's strength is? Do you not know how to utilize him in the best way possible? That's at least my question.
For me, that was just them throwing in some extra bullshit to have another reason to give as to why they've had to recruit him. Because their implication there, which you can't argue against, is obviously he's won more than Vetheo, hasn't he? So the angle there is if you argue against it, it's like, well, don't you want us to have a winner in our team? It's like, that's a bit of a whack angle though, isn't it? Like,
no, exactly. I mean, I would just say, like, I made a video on somebody recently called the worst import of all time. His name was Hichani. He's won more than Vetheo too, so maybe you just give him a go. You know, like that guy brings the winner's mentality to the team. Like,
right, here's the thing though. Before what I'll say is this though, I want to just get your quick take on the actual team. Like I said, individually maybe an upgrade, but like it sounds like you're on the same boat as me, mate. I don't think this quantitatively really changes what I think XL's going to do. Like I don't think it wins them 4 extra games to split. Like it maybe wins them 1 or 2. Like I imagine they're still like probably competing for 4th or 5th.
I think they're competing for 6th with Misfits. Like my mentality, the whole split hasn't really changed. I have a top 5, middle 2, and then a bottom 3. My bottom 3, BDS, SK, Astralis, I think that they're just not going to make it.
Yes.
They're just not going to make it. Top 5, Vitality, Mad Lions, Rogue, Fnatic, G2. And then I think it's XL and Misfits fighting for the 6th spot, the last playoff spot. And I still think it's just that. And I don't necessarily think that this is even a great time for it, because you just played one of your games against Misfits and lost it. So even if you become slightly better than Misfits, where the standings are right now, and you tie them 1-1, I'm not sure off the top of my head how the strengths of schedules have worked, but I don't necessarily know if you just being better than Misfits now puts you into the playoffs. Like you still might not make it based off the schedule that you have remaining. So for me, it's like maybe you skate by a 6, but I definitely don't think you're fucking with the top 5. So I would honestly, for me, that's why I was saying the Misfits angle could have been so much more interesting for Mickey, because I mean, number one, he's been with Misfits before, but then also I feel like that team actually has more potential. Like I don't think that Mikyx will compensate for all the other problems that XL has around the map. Like I don't think that their solo laners are super top tier. They're both okay, but I don't think that they have that potential to actually beat the top teams. I know they took a game against Vitality when they had like COVID on week 1, but I'm not actually going to say, oh, XL is better than Vitality to me, even though technically they have the same score and they have the tiebreak. So, yeah, I mean, I just feel like they're the same team. They're a 6th, 7th place team. Maybe they get 6 now. That's the winner's mentality.
All right, let's move on, because the team I want to talk about now, just we'll pick up from where we were last week. It only took 1 week, Dom, for the Vitality stonks to turn the round, and now they've headed the opposite direction. And bearing in mind, there's only 2 teams that have won every single game, and one of them's Rogue, which has obviously had a bit of a light schedule. All of a sudden, it only took 1 week, and Vitality's already back in the mix. They're already back in the mix to be a top team.
No, see what I've learned about LEC is that it's really just which player is more washed. So it's not that Perkz is actually good.
Okay,
it's just that Caps is so shit and so washed that it doesn't even count that Perkz him in that lane. So keep on going through the teams until you just get the full circle of suck, and then no one's good. Like that's the only way that you rationalize dog shit opinions, like saying the Vitality was fucked after week 1.
By the way, you're reaching a bit far when you have to go that Caps is washed in socks now. Like, I do like it though, Dom, because it's like they really didn't learn the essence of their lesson. The lesson wasn't, by the way, that Vitality was good in week 1. The lesson was, don't give up on truly legendary players with transcendent qualities like Perkz. And they were like, yeah, I get what you're saying. So you're saying Caps sucks now. Like, brother, that's the opposite of what I'm saying. Like, yeah, are you listening? Is any of this getting through? Because that's the same thing, mate. Like, let's go on the Vitality topic then. Look, obviously, they did look way better. With that said, though, there's still plenty of holes in their game. Like, what do you actually think realistically? Like, taking the 2 weeks and projecting forwards, like, do you think you've gotten a better bead on where they're going?
I mean, I think it's really hard to tell still. It's been so few games, and just like the way they looked in week 1 was so much different than week 2. I still feel like there's going to be some issues like connecting all the pieces together. But I think that if Perkz is actually laning well, like if he's actually able to lane well, Alfari's going to lane well, just like he did in week 1. And sure, you might lose to some of the super coordinated teams that actually get their shit together. Like, let's say Mad Lions really puts everything together. I know they're not looking amazing yet, but it seems like once you get into the mid game, if you give them a similar position to Vitality in the mid game, I would expect Mad Lions to make better decisions all the time. Fnatic has some weird games, but their players look strong enough that I kind of think that they'll just be able to be a top 3 team. And then G2, I would love to see Vitality play against them with a different draft, because like, what do you really get out of the tank Zyra game? It's like, okay, the Zyra Caitlyn game is supposed to push in and win bot lane the entire time, and they got gank level 2, and Flocky just walks up for a cannon minion and suicides, and now bot lane is completely doomed. That's like their main win condition. BB's on Gragas, which I've never been a fan of BB on Gragas. I don't feel like he plays the pick that well. I like his Orin, I like his Aatrox. I think that he has a lot of specialty picks that really work out, but Gragas is just not something that I feel like he's super practiced on or he's really proficient at. And then Caps doesn't have much agency in that game if he's quirky and everything is going to shit around him. So I actually don't really get that much of a read of where they're going. I feel like they could be anywhere from like 1st to 5th still.
Yeah, because if people don't realise, obviously one game was against BDS, and we've discussed, they look like kind of a bit hopeless at the moment, so hard to take too much from that. And then the other game, as you say, the big hyped game of the week against Perkz against G2 was, unironically, the game was tilted by a fucking level 2 gank by the jungler just running through the jungle. So, like, that's so rare that's ever going to happen in a massive high-level game. Like, I agree. What do you take from that match? Like, there's not that much you really can take. Like, the funny thing is, if anything, it just made G2 look ineffective, but it's not like Vitality was pummeling the whole game. They just kept their leads.
I think they played solid. I mean, I think that one thing that was that could inspire hope is the fact that Perkz was actually like late. Like his CS was absurd in that game. He had like 300 plus CS at like 24 minutes or something like crazy like that. I don't know the exact numbers, but he had an absurd amount of CS. I think somebody said he had like 216 minutes. So, I mean, he was actually playing like more of like a control mage, lane dominant style. Like he was taking camps. I mean, he was doing what you'd expect a player like him to do if they were on their game. So I really want to see if they can develop other things, because obviously Perkz has always been able to do that. I mean, it's a different degrees of effectiveness depending on time frame, but generally that's something that he's been able to do as a mid laner within LEC. I would want to see them play different types of things. Like I want to see the Perkz LeBlanc with Selfmade on a ganking jungler and see if they're able to actually find some cohesion there, because it's really easy for Selfmade to just ignore mid lane completely and get a win like that. But how do they work together as a team? Because I feel like that's something that we've seen Selfmade kind of struggle with before. It never felt like him and Nemesis were really on the same page, even though they were good friends. So that's something that I want to see out of them. And there's going to be a bunch of different things that we need to see to be able to determine if this is actually like the real super team. Are they going to be a top team in Europe?
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Like for me, Southmid in the past has always been at his best. He just played for himself, basically. He just played like a greedy style and did ganks. It looked like he set up, he wanted. That's the moment that he would decided it was the right one. Whereas to me, if you're going to play with perks, like you've got to be part of the bigger game plan. Like that's how you're going to win the whole game. Like look at what people like Yankos did with him previously. They looked like they're on the same page completely. Right. If we talk about the other side of that equation, though, the G2 side, this is the reason why I wasn't that hyped when this roster was announced, Dom, because people did this thing that they do, and this is how you know you're a truly transcendent player. When you're a truly transcendent player, they don't even question if you'll play at your peak. They just go, right. So when Caps is amazing, and then you get it's like, you just go like that, like, dude, whoa, what? Because this happens in CSGO all the time, dude. Like, when a player's like the best player in the world, they go, right, well, if you were to add him to that team, and I go, well, who says the star player keeps playing 10 out of 10? Like, that's not even, that's not a given. Like, it's very rare there are geniuses that just year on year on year, they're always just the best. So to me, you've seen when Caps is just a good player, of God forbid when he has an off game, what does this team have? Like suddenly it becomes like it becomes like an XL dude. When Caps is on his game, this is just another XL. I know it sounds like hate to say that, but like I feel like almost everything has to go right if this team's gonna have any chance to win.
Yeah, well, I mean, XL now has the winner's mindset, so I expect them to just shit all over G2. I'm gonna nail that shit. Like, I'm gonna keep on going throughout the entire episode. But I mean, I think G2 definitely has other options. Like, they have other places that they can play through that I think XL doesn't have. Like, I would take BB over Finn any day when it comes to like playing a carry matchup. I would take BB over him any day. I would take Targamas. I would take Targamas on anything besides for Zyra to actually be able to put up a fight. I feel like they just didn't have champions that really allow them to have other options. And like the way that their draft kind of functioned was to play through bot lane. Like you have a Caitlyn lane, so you're going to be playing through bot lane. You want to just be focusing on that the entire time. And then top lane's supposed to exist and mid's supposed to exist. Top lane's on a tank and mid lane's on Corki. So as soon as the bot lane falls, I feel like they just look worse than they actually should because they don't have a plan B. It's just like, that is the plan. Push in bot lane, harass them under turret. Like Zyra is just going to be unkillable because she's going to build tank and you're just going to keep on running the game through a Caitlyn. And this is like one of the biggest problems that I have with that champion is that every team around the world, like we saw the same thing with 100 Thieves in NA. When I was watching NA, they tried to do the same thing. Clearly, they're just not a Caitlyn team. And Caitlyn, you have to run the whole game. You have to have the advantage bot lane. You have to be first on moves. You have to be pressuring turrets. You just have to play the tempo game consistently. And if that's ever like fucked with at all, if your tempo is ever killed at any point, it just feels like, oh, now we just don't have an AD carry compared to the enemy team. So for me, I don't think that it's actually that doomed. I think that it looked worse than it was because of the champions that the rest of the team was on.
It's not doomed, but one of the problems I have with this squad is this isn't a squad like some of the others where they're like meeting each other on like, 3 days before week one. As far as we know, this lineup essentially, because they were trying the players out in the bot lane from ages ago, they've essentially had like the makings of this team quite a long time now. Like they've had plenty of time to think things through, run a bunch of scrims, experiments, play against even international competition as far as I know. Like it's not like this is the team that, they're just still getting it together in week one. So my problem is I expected, especially with the Dylan Falco team, I thought they'd actually be a little bit better out the gate though. Like I thought I'd see more like of a consistent level. So I will say they've only lost to top teams in theory so far, like other teams that are in the mix to be up there. But this next game this week is the one that's going to really say a lot to me, because when they play against Fnatic, it can't be another damp squib, as we say in English. This has to be a banger game. Even if you lose it, just show me something. Show me that cohesion. Show me that the support and the jungle are on the same page. Again, people don't have to win the game, but show me like the fight basically in this one.
Yeah, I definitely think that this needs to be a better performance, especially because Fnatic hasn't been looking that strong themselves. I mean, I definitely think the bot lane is still completely insane. Looks like by far the best bot lane. And especially when you consider all the AD carries that have left. Like, Hansama and Reckless are no longer in the league. Those are the two people consider. Like, if somebody was like, oh, I actually don't think Upset is the best AD carry in EU last split, they would have said, oh, well, we think it's Hansama then. And if it wasn't Hansama, you'd have some, delusional fanboys be like, it's Reckless. He's just in the wrong environment. Yeah. People love shitting on Carzzy. People act like Carzzy's just complete dog shit, even though he's pretty proficient. I actually like Carzzy as a player. But yeah, I mean, I think the AD carry pool has gotten weaker. There's a lot of new players coming in. I mean, if you look at Rogue now, they have Comp, you have Mad Lions are playing with Unforgiven. They're not playing with players that should be rivaling Upset. So I feel like Fnatic just has a huge advantage in that regard, but there's still like a bunch of like randomins from Wonder. Razork has not played the same as he did with Misfits. So to me, I think it's the biggest test for G2 is their bot lane. If everything else looks fine, it could be fine if they lost this game. Like, I'm not expecting them to beat Fnatic. I don't think that they're favored to beat Fnatic, but I just want to see them lose in a reasonable fashion where it's like your top lane looks good, your jungle looks good, and your bot lane just wasn't able to match the best bot lane in Europe, or probably the best bot lane in the West, depending on if Court JJ gets his green card and he actually ends up playing with Hansama. So that's pretty much what I'm looking at in this game is, does the bot lane do okay, and does the rest of the team actually start performing?
For me, the key thing about LEC right now is the records are misleading. Like, I guess I even alluded about Rogue, but it applies to Fnatic as well. The two teams that have yet to lose a game, in Rogue's case, they just played all the worst teams essentially, except like one good team. And then in the case of Fnatic, they basically just brute forced them. They just had better players, and they clearly have the existing already best bot lane, like you say. So to me, like, unlike in past, sometimes you have a split where it's like, this is the team that's cracked like the meta at the beginning of the season. Like, the first 8-9 games, no one could touch them. That isn't the case for either of these teams that are at the top. Like, if I was one of those 3-2 teams, mate, the whole split is absolutely still game on. Like, these teams, if someone like Fnatic doesn't get like 20% better, they're going to drop games in these coming weeks. Like, there's definitely going to be BO1s they lose.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, I was just looking at it right here, and I believe Rogue as well have played SK, BDS, and Astralis. And we go through earlier in the show when I was giving my little power ranking, my division of teams. Those are the bottom three teams.
Yes,
so
they've both played them. Yeah.
Yeah, so both of those have played the bottom three teams already,
yep.
Which means that these are going to be the next banger games. I mean, Fnatic's best game, I guess, was against Vitality when Vitality was just running it down week 1.
Yep.
Outside of that, they played Misfits, which is in that 6th, 7th tier. And yeah, they haven't played against Mad Lions. They haven't played against Rogue. They haven't played against G2 yet. Like, they haven't played against any of the other top 5. So for me, I think that it's pretty much what you say. Strength of schedule is a huge deal here. And both of these teams had ridiculously easy strengths of schedule. So sure, they're 5-0, but I don't think that they're just the best teams in the world. Like, I don't expect Rogue to just be so much better than they were last year, and I'm not sold that they've cracked the code with this new lineup. I mean, there's definitely games that I've seen them play where I thought, yeah, if you had if you were playing this type of game, if you had this off of a game versus a better team, you'd lose. Thought the same thing with Fnatic last week. That Astralis game, come on, you're taking 40 minutes to beat Astralis. Look, all those random wonder ints like before Barons and stuff like this. I mean, it was not a clean game by any stretch. So why should I believe that can't happen versus a good team? It was just because you're underestimating Astralis. Like, that could easily happen. These teams are not crisp. They're not polished yet. We can see this happen against G2, and they could just lose a game like that. So, I mean, it's early in the season. I think first round robin, you can start talking about it, but you really start getting a sense for team strength about 3/4 of the way through the split, because the split is so short. It's only 18 games. Like, technically, we're almost a third of the way through the split, but I mean, we played 2 weeks. We've barely played it all.
One thing I'm a big fan of as a hypothetical and a good tangent on shows is when you have the discussion of when two people work really well together. It's not as simple as who made who. Like, one was the mastermind and one. It's not like Pinky and the Brain. One's not like a genius and the other's a fucking moron. Usually it's more like, I would say what percentage is it? So the example I gave earlier where it was Perks. I don't know, pick whoever you want, Perks or Jankos or whatever. It looks to me like it was more Perks than it was Jankos, if that was the analogy that we're giving then, right? I'll say Jankos because he won 2 MVPs during the time they played together. If I go to the Mad Lions one, I alluded to this last week, where what I find crazy is if players are available on Mad Lions for sale, and if you just pay megabucks, you get them. Am I the only one missing? Why has no one got Kaiser? That would be my first pick for Mad Lions. So I'm getting the vibe, I've got to say. I know it's early on, and obviously he's working with a different coach, different players. People in Mad Lions, I notice a lot of fans had it that it was Humanoid was Mad Lions. He was not just the star player because he's the mid laner, but also he's some sort of the shot caller genius, and he's making these mid-game moves. Essentially, they tried to bill him as though he was the Perks of their team, right? I get the vibe when I look at Mad Lions with and without Humanoid, and I look at Humanoid with and without Kaiser. I feel like it was more Kaiser, dude. Kaiser looks like he just sets up that team. You can put any other players in top lane, jungle. Somehow, he for me, as far as I can tell, again, without making it 100% and 0, he seems like he was the main aspect of what everyone loved about the way they were so cohesive in all those different Mad Lions. He's doing it with third lineup now, guys. Meanwhile, Humanoid, he's a very good player, but I don't know that he's I don't really know that he game changes in the way people maybe imply. It just looks like a very good mid laner to me.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the credit for me for their mid game, which is the Mad Lions mid game, that's like their famous thing. I think that goes to Kaiser for me. Like, it seems like he's the one that has the real understanding of it, and he's the one that's always like first out of play. Like, it seems like most of the game is run through him. I think Humanoid was just an insane mid laner last year. I think he was just shitting on everyone in lane. I mean, there was the finals against Larson where he took both sides of the matchup, won both sides of the Victor Oriana match.
Gangsters,
like,
fuck yeah.
And it's like, okay, man, like you're just a level
exactly.
up.
I love that shit.
Yeah, no, I love that shit too. I mean, I think that he's a beast mid laner, but he's not Mad Lion. He's not the identity of the team. The identity of the team is what Kaiser like how Kaiser gets them to move. So yeah, I mean, I think Mad Lions is really good. I think Mad Lions is significantly better when Kaiser's on a hard engage champion because he's so confident and he's so he has such good vision. He's able to read situations so crisply that his engages are almost always good. Like every now and then, obviously you get the int engage. Everyone has the int engage. Mikyx had those. You know, Hilly's had those. Kaiser has those. Whatever. I don't really hold that against players too much. I love watching this guy play like Leona. I love watching him play Nautilus, Rel, Rakan. Like this is what this guy does. And when you see the team function, when he's on, you know, a Zillion or a Thresh or something like that, I feel like it's completely different. Seems like his role in those situations is telling other people to engage, and that's something that I feel like can never be a thing. Like you don't have the time to prep somebody else to see the moment because by the time that you've already communicated it, the moment is gone. So I think that Matt is definitely way stronger, and when they have him on engage support, I feel like that is one of the biggest differences I see within this team. But overall, I mean, I'm not too worried. I mean, obviously there was not a great game from Reeker. Like the game versus Trimby's Blitzcrank, it was definitely I mean, it was definitely one of the worst games that he's gonna have, and I feel like you just probably don't see that type of pressure in ERLs. You're not gonna have a Blitzcrank just constantly mid, canceling your recall, killing you over and over again. That put him further behind than he needed to be in that game. But still, for me, I think that this team centers around Kaiser and his ability to start things happening with engaged sports.
Because my question, it's a rare meta-related question, is everyone keeps hyping the idea it's going to be all like Enchanter supports. They're going to be the OP shit, Tom. In a world where that happens, if you are Kaiser, I agree with what you said. Like, if I'm him, I'm being like Ignar at Season 7 Worlds. I'm forcing these engaged sports no matter what. Like, we ain't going to fucking Enchanter supports, mate. Like, it's going to take away one of the pillars of the team as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I don't think you need to. I personally don't think you need to go Enchanter supports. I think that, like, when certain Enchanters are picked, you want to answer with a different enchanter. So for example, if Lulu is picked, you want to have a sustain enchanter, or you want to have something like Karma into it. If you see a Karma picked, maybe you want a sustain enchanter into that. For me, I feel like you could still play like Nautilus until he's champion. I mean, it's still the same type of thing where you get a gank, you hook someone, they're fucking dead. Like it just is what it is. So yeah, I don't think that'll be that much of an issue for Mad Lions. I don't think that they need to follow that meta too much because it's been a while, man. Like, what was the last time that engaged supports were not viable at all? Where it's like, no, you cannot pick Nautilus or Leona. Like, we've been able to pick Nautilus or Leona for like 3 seasons now. So I don't think that's going anywhere anytime soon. If not, like, Rakan will be viable and there'll be things for him to play. I just hope that they don't go too deep into we need to play Zillion support. Fanatics are competition. They're playing fucking Zillion support. We got to try to get on that level too. I think just play what you're good at.
Also, by the way, just as a general rule, unless you are an amazing one trick on Zillion, don't fucking play Zillion. It's like you're all watching the one tricks when they do all the shit that makes you want to play it. Spoiler, you aren't that guy. In the same way as if you don't play Thresh at all, you don't just fuck around and play it, do you? You're going to be incompetent. It looks amazing when the fucking sick player in Korea plays it. You ain't going to be him though. So I think certain champions also like are just fucking traps like that. Like if you aren't a really good spoiler, Hillisang's just amazing on Zillion. You aren't. It's not that Zillion's amazing. Hillisang's amazing on Zillion. Know the difference out there, support to the LEC, because too many people get suckered into those ones. It reminds me actually on the exact topic. I remember a couple of years back when fucking they had the game when Team Liquid played against TSM, and Cos Bjergsen was obviously using Zillion all the time. Yeah, Jensen was like, I'm going to take it from him. And it's like, mate, all you did is fucking handicap your team, you idiot, because you didn't even know how to use it. Like, he's doing like the speed up on Core JJ and stuff in fights. Like, what are you doing? Like, that's for the fucking carries. Like, so yeah, if you don't know it, just fucking stay clear of that. It should come with one of those warnings that, you know, these are trained professionals. Do not attempt this at home if you're an amateur player newly in the LEC being developed by Excel. You will be cut next week for fucking anyone. Like, like, Promiscu will be joining in your place next week. Like, give me a break.
Fucking Christ. I mean, don't get me started on the fact that Promiscu is it. Like, you see Promiscu, he literally just can't do anything to lose his spot. My favorite account on Twitter.
He must know where all the bodies are buried, mate. How does he keep getting these gigs? It's mental, isn't it?
I just can't watch the league and be like, yes, Advian's being replaced. Promiscu is still in LEC and we're replacing somebody like Advian. What the fuck? I mean, look, I get it. No one wants to play for Astralis. I wouldn't fucking want to play for Astralis. Like, no one wants to play for that team, but you got to find somebody better than that in the ERLs.
Come on.
I talked to so many different people, and for some reason, Promiscu is another one of those players. Every single time you ask a pro player,
his teammates never. If he's an active teammate with us and they're still on his team, they'll never fully trash him in privately. I found that as well. It's insane, isn't it, dude?
And, well, I think it's crazy also that other supports in the league, like I had Treats on one of my co-streams and I was like, yeah, Promiscu kind of ran it down today. He's like, yeah, he ran it down, but he's actually like really insane. Like this guy gets too much shit.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, but like, if you always run it down, there has to be something wrong, right? Like, it's not like we're just all fucking crazy. We watch all those games and it's like, ooh, another bad game from Promiscu. And it's like, no. But like, you didn't see it. Like the camera was panned away from him. He really did something super good in the lane that helped Kabi get a lead. No, like he's running it down way too much. There has to be better players. I can name one of them right now that just freed up. Advian, like, if you want to play for Astralis, hey, that should be your team right there. Like, that should be your team. You get to play with Kabi, like, Kabi and Patrick could be the same player for my money. Like, who cares? Maybe that's your next stop.
Right, here's the thing. Of all the other teams, right, the one I am interested in is Misfits, because even though I do think, like we talked about the roster, like the roster isn't, look, compared to last split, it's a downgrade because you don't have Raz, Orc and all that jazz. It does remove some of the hype from it. But the thing that I'm interested in is, like, Vetheo clearly was one of the players last split who was, like, massively improved. Like, he went from being like, I can see why they've picked him up last spring, to, like, in summer, he genuinely was, especially on his champions, one of the best mid laners in the whole league. He looked amazing at times. He was carrying the fuck out of even games in the playoffs, right? For me, those two players, the solo laners of this team, they have to be amazing. Like, for real, they probably have to be, like, I would say probably top 3 in their role if Misfits is actually going to do anything meaningful beyond just make the playoffs and go out in the first round or something. What have you thought of what you've seen so far? Because I know him also was quite hyped in last summer as well by some of the top laners.
Yeah, I like Vetheo a lot, and I like his progression. I feel like that's something that's really it inspires confidence watching somebody go from being a Zoe LeBlanc 2-trick, and then you see him add like Silas to his game. It's like, oh, he can play melee mid laner, and now he's able to play all the mages all of a sudden. It's like, oh, look, that Victor that's high CS per minute. Like, that's what you need out of a mid laner. So I feel like his rate of progression has been really good, and the way that he's progressed has been something that, Misfits should hang on to. I just think it's so fucking crazy because when I think about his first split, it's like, who he had a similar split to in my mind? Chekalad. If this guy was on XL, they would have cut him off after the first split. So like, I mean, I don't know. When I look at Misfits, I think that they can be decent. I'm still not sold on Mersa at all. I mean, even him in his interview, he's like, yeah, I think I've been nervous and like kind of running it down at some point. So I think that's kind of a good sign for me, at least when a player's not fully delusional and they're not just like defensive from the get-go, like they're able to recognize their mistakes in the game. So I'm not gonna give up on him or anything. I just don't think he's that good. Right now, definitely don't think that he's better than what Vander looked like in my mind in summer. I just think the team is okay. I mean, I'll probably predict them to lose against any of the top 5 teams until I see some like stellar breakthrough performance. And yeah, I think the thing that's been a little bit curious for me has been Hirit's play, because as you mentioned, for this team to be good, their solo laners need to be insane. Because Neon's just going to be solid. We don't know anything about Mersa. Fun seems pretty good. Like for a new jungler in LEC, I think he's got skill for sure.
Yeah.
But I think Hirit really needs to be what he was last split. And I just feel like I haven't been seeing the same Hirit for some reason. Yeah. Like he's had a lot of weird games, and it's clear from watching the games and seeing the player cams afterwards that he is disappointed in his performance. I just hope that his confidence is still there. So when games start, he's ready to like be 2021 summer Hirit, because that guy was actually one of the best carry top laners in Europe in the last split.
Yeah, I'm sort of with you in that. I'm actually like quietly more and more impressed the more I watch of Vetheo, because when he first came in that summer, I was like, is this fucker just only play a Carly or something? Is that it? Because remember, he's getting all those games, and everyone in LEC who got a Carly just took the joke was, I think, like Niski or something one game. Like, everyone else was just smashing everyone in the league if they got a Carly. But actually, as you say, this is why I know he's got skills. Because he had his few champions that he was insane on, like you're saying. But he's actually looking really good on all the other ones. And as you say, like, mate, the champion pool's rounded out really nicely now. Can basically play most of the better champions that you would want a carry mid laner to play. And I actually think I have a little bit of an inside scoop here, because obviously I do some of my shows with Zabatine, and Zabatine actually personally coaches Vetheo, so I sometimes get more insight. As far as I can tell as well, he really is trying to like slowly take him through essentially the progression to be a Caps-esque player, as in he does like encourage the idea that you sort of play to your limits, you don't worry sort of about the outcome of the game, you just try and make like the most decisive play. So like that, I love that angle, because if people don't get it, it's so easy in League of Legends as a coach to crush the spirit of a young, really like talented player, but who hasn't got the all-around game yet. What happens is they go in the game, they try to be Caps, they find out, guess what? Being Caps is a fucking high-stakes game. There's a reason why even Caps in his prime was called fucking Craps at the same time. Dude, even he was getting flamed. So if you're ever going to try and be this type of a mid laner, you are definitely going to have games that you win. You are going to have games where you look like a moron because you took this champion in the matchup. You think it's a skilled matchup and you're going to show it. It ends up going the way the matchup normally goes and you look like a moron for taking that champion. But the key thing is, if you can get the guy through that, if you can safely navigate those really dangerous waters and they somehow don't get like their confidence crippled, they don't have the obvious worst thing ever, which is when the coach just tells you to rein it back in and play it safe. As long as you don't do that, there's not many of them are going to get through their final threshold, but the ones that do will be the Caps types players. And so I have to say, this is a rare example, because we were talking about the Czechla example. This looks like a very good example of how you bring a player up to actually be genuinely one of the best players. Like, it looks like he's on track, and it looks to me like they haven't really put a foot wrong. So despite any other qualms I might have about Misfits, I think as long as they can hold on to Vetheo, as long as he doesn't leave at the end of this year or something, this is actually what you've got to put all your eggs in this basket. Like, this player is clearly the one to just keep going with. He could essentially be overqualified for Misfits next year if you do your job right.
Yeah, he could be a franchise player. I think he's already like the guy that you look at and you're like, what more could you ask out of a player? Especially the way that they kind of talked about it last year. I remember seeing an interview with Vetheo, or maybe it was a video that they put out, but I remember hearing Vetheo talk, and they pretty much said, we knew that he wasn't ready for LEC when we put him in LEC in spring. We put him in LEC in spring because we thought that he would improve like 3 times or 4 times as fast getting to play against the top players and getting shit on in LEC than if he played in ERLs and he was just one of the best mid laners again. Which, I mean, I respect that mentality. I just think that that's a risky thing, because you don't know how a player's going to take that. I mean, if they're open with the player, I mean, it definitely worked in this case, but I can see a lot of players not being able to mentally handle, like, you know, running it down. Because it's not like you just run it down and you just go back with your team and you're like, it's all good. Like, we all have the main mentality. It's like, you're going to run it down and then you're going to fucking go to this show. You're going to be, let's see what Dom and Thorin are doing. We're just going to be shit talking you, and the community, every single Reddit thread is going to be asking you to be benched. Like, it's just going to be a rough time most of the time if you try to like go with this approach. So I'm actually surprised that it went so well for him and he had the mental resilience to weather the storm.
Ever imagine what it must be like if they ever just open Twitch, like, there's a talk show going on, and they click on it, and then we're just going like, fucking Rioma is one of the worst players to ever be allowed in LCS. Like, close that down then. Oh, well, maybe no internet today. Like, you know what I mean? What do they even do that? Sorry. No, one thing I'll say is this, though. Are you ready? Here's a statement. Here's your bold statement for the episode, Dom. Vetheo is who people told me Leader was going to be. That's who he is. He's a player who has the cap ceiling. By the way, Leader does have all these things. His problem is he's just never fully been able to make the transition. It's like he gets caught. Leader's problem is he's way too good for ERLs, but he's not quite good enough that you'd put all your eggs in his basket in the... It's what you said last year. The problem is he is really good, but he should only basically be on the bottom LEC team. And spoiler, no, if you're on those teams at the moment, they just go for the fucking old school play, or they get the rookie that's not even good. Vethio's actually tracked the way that Leader was supposed to, though. Like, you know, give him a few more games, they'll get more comfortable, there'll be less hints, there'll be more kills, he'll carry more games, he'll slightly expand his champion pool because, you know, he has to at that point in time. He's not in the ERLs. Like, that all sounded great. It's just, I don't think it all came out into fruition in the LEC last summer. The Vetheo guy actually has made good on all those markers. Like I say, if you're tracking him for a trajectory to be a Caps, and spoiler, so far only 1 or 2 players ever got to where Caps is, he's at least doing the right approach. And I, as we've pointed out, I like the way the org's bringing him up. That's the best part to me, because otherwise there's plenty of aspects here that are very hit or miss in Misfits. Like I could see them changing some of these players in the summer or taking a gamble on something. Like, for example, I don't know if this support player stays around. I was told by Zabatine the support player is supposed to be like some amazing player from ERLs who's got all this jazz. But the problem with that is, this is another thing I think is mad overrated. I said it about junglers, but it's the same with supports. If you bring me a support who's doing all these genius things in the RLs, they just don't do it in LEC when you put them in. Like, they're not going for the same players. Like, they tend to start out, funnily enough, conservative, and then they gradually try a few players. They don't just come in and go full Hillsang. I know everyone wants them to. Same with the junglers, if you see some guy dominate CRL. But if you notice, it takes a while to unlock the support, I feel like, in LEC.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like there was like only a couple players. Like there was this Advian guy last split who came into like a failing XL, and then he started actually making things happen, and it was really him and Marcoon just saving the team. I think that guy probably deserves to be worked around, because he's shown the promise right there. I mean, he activated it almost instantly. But I mean, I think for a player like Mercer, you got to see. I normally like to give players like 9 games, like half a split. I feel like that's if I haven't seen anything in half a split, most of the time I'm like, probably time to start like I feel the same way with Xmatty when we talk about BDS. It's going to be like, Xmatty, you have ran it down for 5 games. But if you show me like just show me like one good game in the next 4, and then I'll be like, okay, maybe we let you finish this. If not, like, I'm going to be the type of person that's like, hey man, you have crown shot right there. Promote that guy. So I kind of feel like when I look at Misfits, and when you do the leader comparison, I feel like the problem was that leader never had a Misfits. He had Misfits, but he had like the fucked up version of Misfits with the other organization, where they're just like benching his ass after like 2 games. They're like, oh, you play like only Yasuo and ERLs? All right, let's see what you do. It's like, fuck you, leader. You ruined the whole fucking team. Back to ERLs with you. Like, it was fucked up. So
yes.
Like, it's just the situations that leader is always in. He doesn't get actually time to work on his game. It's like, so you're supposed to be good. We're putting you in this team for vitality right now. The team makes playoffs. Yeah, not fucking good enough. Back to ERL. Yes. You're cut off the team. Like, he's never getting an org that's willing to give him time to really show what he's got. It just, he keeps on getting all these setbacks. And a lot of times I feel like that just becomes that's just part of his what people perceive his personality to be. They're like, this guy is like a little bit on the edgy side or the toxic side. Like, I don't know if we really want to work with this guy long term. And because I think people have this preconceived notion of how he's going to be, they just don't want to give him the full like shot.
Oh no, for sure. You can even see it in the way his style of dress, isn't he? Leader is the edgy emo kid who's been in a broken family and all these foster homes, and he's like, he's just waiting for the right old man to come along and just like get like Mr. Miyagi style and sort of reach in there. I'm being very careful with our phrases, he'll start getting a bit dodgy, and basically, connect with him, and tell him you can, because he does actually play also like someone who's just like, first of all, like he's gonna get beaten if he doesn't get 9 kills on Yasuo, and then secondly, like he can't trust anyone, can he? He knows he's got no peel, he's just going in by himself, trying to do like 19 perfect micro corrections mechanically, and therefore win a team fight and get another week in the LEC. Whereas the difference, Misfits is actually like a nice group home that's bringing you up, they're not beating you, they're just going, I see what you're trying there, we'll give you a little bit of room to expand.
Yeah, he's literally just like a guy who's been cheated on by every single girl that he's been with, and then by this point it's like, I just have trust issues, man, I'm fucked up, like, what do you want from me? Like, really, and
then his big test of all tests is they go, right, I tell you what, you get 1 split in the summer with self-made, you make that work. Like, fuck it, holy fuck, like that's like I asked if I could like do a degree course, you're just like, you pass this PhD thesis now, otherwise you're out. Like, seems unreasonable, but all right. Yeah, I don't know if people know, better men are filled with nemesis, fucking self-made, haven't they?
Yeah, I mean, when I saw that, I was like, okay, like, that's not a bad result, right? You went to 5 games with Fnatic, and Fnatic in the made the finals. Like, you were 1 game away from advancing to the next round. Like, there's a realistic world where this team could have made Worlds. Like, that could have happened.
Yeah.
And that's just, like, not good enough. It's like, yeah, no, fuck him. Like, fuck leader then. That's crazy to me.
Right, let's do the rogue topic, because we only briefly touched on it. Right, I've noticed people are claiming, if you check out like the voice comms and stuff, like I looked at a little bit, it does seem like Malrang has better English than you'd expect. He doesn't look like a pure Korean just saying like almost nothing. Grow up, like he can actually speak like sentences and stuff, right? What have you actually thought of Rogue so far, Dan? Because the problem I have is this. I still think the players in the team, I mean, they can't be terrible. Like, if you're terrible with this lineup, you really, really fucked up your GM job, because there's just too many good individual players here. But, like, I still don't see where their gear is that they can go to the top. Like, I know they won a lot of games, but like I'm not buying it, basically. Where are you at on Rogue at the moment?
I think
Have they overperformed thus far?
I think they've overperformed. I think that the big thing about Malrang specifically is I think his personality, at least what he shows, he seems like he's more willing to banter and engage with people and social media and joke around and like not be embarrassed that he might not have perfect English or something. And he's just able to be himself with it, which I think is like a little bit more rare. I remember like Huni was kind of like that when he first came to Europe. And I feel like that's actually a really important quality, is somebody who's more outgoing so that he can fit into the team. It seems like everyone on the team, just based off the voice comes that I've heard as well, they seem like they like hyping him up, you know, like they want him to feel more comfortable. So like if he makes a nice play, they're like, holy shit, Malrang, like you're so good, man. Like, so I like the environment that they have. I think that the key for them is going to be meta. I think that in the right meta, this team could win LEC. I think in the right meta, because they have the guy that can play the tank tops. And if control mages are the shit again, that's Larsen's bread and butter. I know this guy fucking hates it. You can tell by his LEC interviews. He's like, yeah, I'm just the mage guy, man. I can only play. You can see him just fucking see. He's like, yeah, I'm making a joke. It's like, clearly I'm not that, bro. I can play a Kali. Just I can't play a Kali with this team. Like, you can tell that shit piss him off. Whatever, man. Like, I still watch him play. I think he's much better at mages than he is at other things. So I think given the right meta, I think that they have the AD carry that can play like a hyper carry. I think Trimby is solid. And one of the things that I like about Trimby that I think would count a little bit against somebody like Kaiser, for example, is I think Trimby is much more proficient on like the enchanters / the champions that are like half engaged, or the champions that you have to like whittle them down on. So like I would take like a Trimby Thresh or a Trimby Lulu, something like that. So I feel like they have the pieces where if there's like aggressive early game junglers like Lee Sin, Xin Zhao, Jarvan, like there is right now, control mages mid lane, just like the stable top laners, I feel like this team has the pieces to win. But I think that if the meta drastically changes, like Riot likes to do normally, I feel like the team will just be a lot worse. So I don't necessarily think that they're going to be much different than they are now. I think that it really just depends on how the game is.
Yes, they're a little bit one-dimensional in that sense. They're not going to be the versatile team that swaps up every meta role, what lane they play through. Obviously, that goes out saying. No, I'm with you. Like because, like I say, I think what people overlook with Rogue is like the raw player level is still very impressive. Especially now you know Malrang isn't like a complete liability. Like the actual man-for-man level of the players, skill-wise, they have a pretty skilled team. I think people underestimate that having 4 or 5 skilled players will win you fucking games unless you really fuck up. Like you almost have to be an anti-coach to lose games when you got just basically among the best players in the league. My problem is this, and I'll agree with you on that angle. I don't know why Larsen's still running from this like mage player comparison or the Froggen comparison, as it were. Look, homie, if you don't want to be compared to Froggen, I wouldn't go and have the best game of your split on fucking Victor, mate. It's probably not really the route to go with that one, is it? You know, like at the end of the day, like what do you do? So, because I don't get it myself, mate. Like at the end of the day, if you just look at the mentality of Larsen, and I've talked to him a little bit privately as well as on shows, he even has the mentality of that type of player, dude. What I don't get is this: when people like that run from it, right? It's because you're never gonna. It's not cool to be the mage player, right? It's not the sexy. Not. You're not going to have the big moment, right? Like in a team fight. Spoiler: if you get a highlight, you probably needed your team to peel for you. Like you had to judge the distance perfectly, hold your fucking Orianna. Like it's not sexy. It isn't the same as being like when Caps was playing fucking Silas against Gen G and he was just shitting on them all. You know, exactly. You're never going to get that. But here's the thing, mate. If you do an amazing job at that mage player, and we're not talking you're the mage player who's forced to play it like Golden Glue. You choose to, because it's your best champions. You can be a champion, and you can be in the best teams in Europe as well, by the way. Because spoiler, this actually happened, if people don't know, in Counter-Strike. I'll give a very brief tangent. In the same era that we had these players who were like the true prodigies, they were like the fakers, the rookies of the world. People like Simple and Ziwu and Nico. These are the guys where like from day one you can see the talent's unreal, and when they finally unlock it, no one can do what they do. They're like the Capses of the world, the rookies, the fakers, right? We had a player called Device, and my joke is, if they're aliens, he's the best human. He's just a really good player who played like a nice conservative style, and he just played it to a 9 out of 10 level, Dom. And the others, they're 10 out of 10 because they've got the superhuman. Like they're like, you know, the Michael Jordan vertical, and they've got the strength of fucking, I don't know, Brock Lesnar. Like they're the ones who are like the freaks. If you can just be an amazing, really good mid laner who just plays all the mage champions, perfects your game, and your team knows what to do around you, dude, that's a recipe for success. We've seen it in League of Legends. Like you might not be the best player, but your team can be really good, assuming you've got all the good pieces and you're doing this team. So I don't know why he gets, like, to me, I get into like an ego thing, but like, just fucking go with it already, mate. Oh, you're clearly not going to be, you're not going to be a fucking Zed player in a year from now, are you? Just get over it and be a really good mage player.
Yeah, I mean, I can completely vibe with how Larsen is, because it does make you salty, right? Like, I kind of had the same thing in season 5 when I was playing like Nunu and Gragas, and I played against Rush all the time. And even though we won most of those matches, it was just always like, nah, I mean, Rush is just the MVP. Like, all right, like you won, you might have played better that game, but you're playing fucking Gragas. Like, who the fuck, like this is old Gragas, didn't take as much skill, tank Gragas, like whatever. Oh, you're playing Nunu, like who the fuck can't play Nunu? Like most people just won't stoop to the fucking Nunu level. So I completely understand that mentality because I've had that myself too. But Larsson's just so good on mages. Like, it's a quirky meta. Like, as long as he's not, you know, pulling out the season 9 package into the fountain and losing his whole team to series, Corki is just a good champion right now. Just play it. People are fine winning championships like Rise. Like, if I just look at the World Championship, all these different champions were played in the finals. You had Rise played, Malzahar played, TF played, which he was also really good on, which kind of is like the bridge between being a mage and actually doing something. You know, like kind of lanes like a mage, but then you could play the map like something else. Orianna, Syndra, like these are all picks that he could just be the best player in Europe on. So I really hope that he continues playing like that because mages are always good. We never end up in a situation where it's like you cannot pick mages at all. There's no mages that are good. Like Azir is due to come back at some point. You know, Riot is going to randomly buff Azir and that's going to come back in pro play. We see the same thing. Orianna is already starting to sneak its way back in. That's a champion that will just end up being good at some point again. And, you know, like, he can maybe play the odd pick that he's pretty good at, like Lucian. Like, I'm okay with him playing Lucian and not being pure mages, but I just want him to fucking win. Like, I want Larsson to win more than anything. Like, I just wish he wanted to win more than he wanted to just be, like, a fucking beast mid laner that's the caps of Europe, like, has that mentality. I mean, I'm sure he does, but he's not seeing it as a pure trade-off. But it's like, I just think that, like, come on, man. Just be you. Like,
and also, just be you. I'll just say this. I know you play Akali, but motherfucker, have you never heard of the exception that proves the rule? That's the one. After that, you can forget about it. Like, Akali ain't enough. That's like when Leader did the opposite and he was going like, but I technically do play Azir. Like, yeah, 4 times. You obviously wouldn't pick Orianna, you cunt. Like, why are you trying to gaslight me now that you're like some master of all trades? Like, again, if you're just a monster at one style, by the way, perfect that style. Like, there's very few players ever are going to be good at all styles, are they? So, like, I agree in this scenario. Because the thing with me is this. If Rogue has it streamlined, and you basically set it up like that, if we're in a world where the 3 players are the ones you picked out, obviously, it's Odoamne, because it's his whole career is losing gracefully as a fucking weak side player. If he's playing something like a tank and a bruiser top lane, we know he can do that. Check. Larsson on some sort of a mage mid lane. By the way, since mages are always viable, you can have winning matchups for that, of course. Check. And then the last one is, as you say, Trimby's sort of found his niche now. So if Trimby can get his champions, mate, if all 3 of those, if we get 3 checks, suddenly this team, they'll be in the mix to be a potential finalist. They can maybe go and beat some of the other more rock. Maybe they can beat a Vitality, a Mad Lions, and the play is doable. I agree with you, though. If it's a scenario where we have to do the joke scenario that no one can, of like, you have to be versatile and adapt to all lanes and champions and drafts, which almost no one can. Spoiler, that just means you have to have an amazing roster where you have players who like fuck around on the side and can be a carry champion player when it was a meta before that was the tank side. So they're not going to do that, I agree. But I will say, when you look at how rocky some of the other teams that are going to be playoff teams are, I think Rogue, look, they're not going to win the LEC, but they're going to like, I think they're going to be like the sleeper that just somehow finishes like 3rd, and people are going to be like, what the, how did they? But the difference is one of these other teams is going to fail. I actually see this team, I think they'll be fairly consistent. That would be my pick.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't know why teams are so against having an identity these days. It's like,
isn't it?
Because so I obviously watch a lot of LPL, and the thing that I really like about LPL, I mean, this year everyone's kind of still finding their footing.
Yeah,
but the thing I liked about watching LPL, and I think that's really interesting, is that all teams have their own shit. Like the only team that was like more on the versatile side was EDG, but even EDG up until like the end of summer was playing Flandre on weak side every fucking game. Like it didn't matter what he was playing. Like he was the guy that was just picking Renekton, Gragas, all that stuff in spring. And you got to see like all the matchups. Like you knew that DoinB was not going to play certain champions. You know for a fact DoinB is not going to play Syndra. He's not going to play Zoe. 2 core champions, but teams would embrace being unique. We saw RNG with Cryan playing the roaming stuff. He would do anything before he played something that wasn't roaming. When Nocturne was viable, he was playing that. When TF, Galio, and Rise were banned in Worlds, he started playing Annie. Everyone fucking memed him for it, but teams are way more willing to buy into their own system and have that identity. I feel like not that many teams do that in the West. I feel like all teams feel like we need to play everything kind of well. But I just don't know if that's what's going to get you to be one of the best teams in the entire world.
Oh, I'm with you. If people don't know, I think last split, the summer playoffs of LPL last year might even be the best example ever. You go through the top 6 teams and they are so distinct, it is ridiculous. They are so different as squads. I mean, the joke is the only reason EDG fits what you said, where they could change up styles, they really did just have really good players at every position. That was, especially once JJ got his world buff, like then they could adapt. Like everyone else, like the joke was, I had all these people in the West on talk shows telling me like how you have to play the meta, and then I would go watch RNG games and go, "What the fuck? Like, dude, did these guys not get the memo? They're winning games doing this as well. Like, they're one of the best teams in the whole league." So, yeah, I think people, and Europe especially historically, you would think is the region that should embrace identity, right? The idea of like we're totally unique. Think about how different like Moscow 5 is from any other team. In fact, every great European team typically has like its own unique style, blah blah blah, etc. The ones that don't, by the way, tend to be the ones that didn't do much. I'll give you an example: the G2 team that won the like 3 championships in a row with Mithy and Sven. Their problem was they were just a slightly worse version of a Korean team, unfortunately. So they were really good in the West, but they weren't going to do what the later G2s did, etc. So yeah, I think having a distinct personalities that it's just the reason it's the way to go is you perfect one style at the highest level, and then look, if you had more, listen, chance to be a fine thing. Of course, you'd expand out and bring other things, but just figuring out 1 or 2 ways to win the game consistently is really fucking hard. That takes months. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
So hard to do. Like, you're not going to be able to fucking get good at all these different comps. We got to learn how to, like, we know how to play on 2 lanes, 3 lanes. We know how to play with like a carry jungler. Like, we know, no one can do that. There's the game changes too much. Things become strong. And then there becomes like pieces that you end up needing to incorporate into your team. But then it's about like keeping the stability elsewhere that really makes your team excel. So, I mean, it's one of the things that I like. Maybe it's like a fucking old school mentality, and maybe it's just the fact that I really like LPL, right? So I watch a lot of LPL, and this is what I see. But I just think that is something that could be an advantage for Rogue, because they do have players that have identities. It's just that their identities like are not cool for the most part. No one wants to be like known as the enchanter player. It's like, yeah, he just has to play enchanters. He can't engage. Like he's an enchanter. Oh, that guy. Oh, he's just the mage guy. Oh, he's the weak side top player. Like they have the most boring niches in history, but it's like those are actually really good altogether if you line them all up. So. Yeah,
I'd also say as well, in all games I've followed, when you have the meta of actually how teams' styles stack up and what works against each other, whenever everyone else goes one route, mate, like they're all going one style, if you play the natural counter to that style, listen, here's when it's the best, right? If you're the best team, you probably want to play the best style overall, right? But if you're not the best team, if you can master the counter, you immediately become contender status, because you can potentially beat the best team as a result. Like if everyone else goes like some, I don't know, fucking hyper aggressive like dive comp mode, and you're playing this super stable win the late, like dude, you're going to win a lot of games in those scenarios. Like you're going to have games where they're just not going to get their players off early and just win. Basically, the joke is Rogue shouldn't be the team that need to be told this. Go back a few years, they used to just win by doing nothing, didn't they? They just waited, and if you didn't make the players early, they just won the game at the end by scaling. Like you could be that team if you want. That's a viable way to play the game. I'm not going full S when I say that. You don't have to do it every game, of course, just as a general trend.
And like you can make that adaptation that's going to put you in the advantage position versus another really good team when the time comes for it, but it just shouldn't be a whole stylistic thing.
Yes.
Like an example of this would be when FPX played EDG in the finals. One of the big advantages, one of the main reasons that EDG won that series was because they were able to take the top laner of Flandre, and instead of just playing weak side every game and just letting Nuggery do whatever he wants, they found something that counterpicked, and it was a carry top laner that counterpicked Nuggery's Jace. So Nuggery's mentality was like, oh, this guy just plays a bunch of like weak side champions. I'm gonna play Jace. We're gonna ban Malphite or whatever, and I'm just going to just run over this guy in lane because I have lane bully. And then when Flandre answered it and said, hey, I'm going to play Lucian top, I'm going to answer your Jace with a Lucian top, and I'm actually going to win that lane, it completely blew up the game, and FPX just didn't know how to react. By the time they figured it out, it was too late in the series. They were down 2 games, made a couple mistakes in game 4, boom, they lose the championship. So I don't know. I definitely, and it's not just in League. I mean, I think about basketball. Like I've been watching a lot of basketball, and my favorite team is the Miami Heat. I don't know if you've watched the Miami Heat recently, but it is one of the most like defined styles that you'll see. Everyone always talks about Heat culture. And it's not a sexy style either, but I think it's actually an effective one. And I think it's why you see the Heat do well consistently over such a long period of time, is that they have this defensive gameplay. Like they have this idea of, yeah, we play our defense by switching on every single pick and roll. And a lot of teams don't know how to deal with that. They're like, oh shit, we got like a 6'9" center and Bam Adebayo, and he's guarding the point guard. What the fuck? Most people can't can't do that switch.
Course,
a lot of times you have like a Rudy Gobert or a Joel Embiid that doesn't have the ability to play perimeter defense like somebody like Bam. So I feel like there's examples that you can find in other games where that actually is a viable strategy.